Hey everybody, this is DM Mike, and this is the next campaign diary for DOIP, Dragons of Icespire Peak. It's too many words, people. It's just too many words to say every single campaign diary. So now it is officially DOIP, which I think everybody calls it anyway. May not be the exact pronunciation, but I'm going to call it DOIP. So this is number 2 for DOIP. Here's some few statistics somewhere that makes sense. A lot of things happened that night. We did a lot of role play. Matter of fact, actually, I think the whole thing was just about the whole thing was role playing. And this is a good module, I think, so far into parsing the wheat a little bit. It can go very, very role play and then boom, combat, or it could just be all role play. So far in that territory, I'm kind of enjoying it. But I see D&D as an episodic television show. So we ended up, we finished the Manticore piece with Umbrage Hill last time we played, and we picked up right where we left off. They were emerging out of the Manticore's cave. And here's where I implemented a skill challenge. The players didn't know it. This is one of the things I never really announced. I just knew that I wanted them to get 3 to 4, actually 4 skill challenge positive results, successes, I should say, to convince the lady, which I can't think of her name now, to convince the lady to move from this forest region back to Phandalin. Now, here's the thing. I've been reading a lot of Westerns and whatnot recently, and luckily, right before I started playing this campaign, I came across one that talked about the Texas Rangers and just the frontier and how people acted in the frontier and how tough as nails they really were. From the men to the women, didn't matter. Even the kids, everybody was tough as nails. So that's how I approach this with Umbrage Hill and this lady here. She was tough. She didn't run away from danger. She wasn't the woman how I think the module is written as help. I kind of felt like that was a little silly. I wanted to get away from that. She is a frontier woman, and they are rugged, and they put up with a lot of stuff. And even though this terrible thing happened, and if you can watch the outcome of that encounter in the previous campaign diary, she felt like she still wanted to stay. She didn't want to just run away with her skirt up at the first sign of danger, right? So there was a skill challenge from the time they left the cave there at the Manticore all the way back to her house. And you can see the map here. It's all destroyed and whatnot. Everything's kind of eaten up, and the Manticore kind of attacked her. I changed that up because I've seen so many videos of how that plays out, and it just bored me. And that's not a commentary on people's, how you've DM'd it or anything like that. I just wanted a little more dynamic stuff going on there. And so I changed all that. And what I've typically seen most times is that people force it. She never goes back to Phandalin. She just stays put. And she gives them the healing potions that talks about in the book. And that's it. Everyone I have watched has turned out that way. And I felt like that doesn't seem fair. That doesn't seem like I don't know. I think I really wanted to change that, right? So if you're running this and you're getting ready to you're getting ready to start DOIP and you want to run Umbrage Hill, give the players choice. Give them an opportunity to actually change her mind, even though she's a rugged frontier woman who could, split an otter in half if she wants to. That seems cruel. But give them choice. Don't just do it as written and she never really goes back and she just gives them the potions. Give them something to work with there. And we had a lot of good roleplay moments there. A lot of convincing things and arguments back and forth between the NPC and the character. And I think they were pretty on point. And I think both sides were pretty strong, as I was being the lady, and they were trying to convince her to change. Now, when they got to her house, another thing was happening was now I have the orcs starting to come down and intervene in the structure of the story. And they were there, and they couldn't quite tell what was going on. They were kind of observing them, and there was discussion to actually try to bombard these orcs, like go after them. There were 4 or 5 there, including one shaman, and one I added to the adventure, a sapper, a orc sapper, who had just a big bag of bombs and a torch in one hand and bomb in the other, and he had 4 arms, and he was some kind of mutant, like he just wasn't a typical orc. And so they were observing this, and of course that was more fodder for them to role play off of, like, hey, you sure you want to stay here? Now you got orc problems. So that was a little more convincing. So they spent some time. There actually was some pretty heavy debate. Should we attack them? Should we stay? Should we attack them? Kept going back and forth, like watching, I don't know, pigeons play tennis. It was just ba-doop, 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 back and forth. But they eventually just watched them observed them and watched them as they kind of left the area. And then they went back in, and there was a couple more skill challenges there, and they did convince her finally to go to Phandalin. Now, what they found also in the house is the shaman left an artifact. I'll put up pictures up here. Left an artifact there, and the characters didn't know what it was. It was unusual. She was trying to figure out where the heck did that come from, because I'm an apothecary. I don't keep these random statues around. So they took all that, convinced her. They spent like another hour and a half there packing up all her goods. She ripped up the floorboards where the orcs had not gotten into and gave them 4 potions. So she did give that up. But they tried to pack as much as they could, and they spent that time going from her place back to Phandalin. And there actually was some other great just role play moments. I don't want to spell it out for you, but it's just kind of the way they acted with Worcestershire, the town master, Old Carson, and kind of updating him of what happened with Umbrage Hill. One kind of seed I started to plant was, if you look at the adventure, there's all kinds of outside maps and dungeon crawls and things they can get involved with. Most, I think, are not going to see any of that. And I think that's fine, whatever. But I did lay down some seeds. Some of the characters, the NPCs, like the apothecary, as they were just walking back to Phandalin, asked what their next move is, where they go. Where does the town master have you going next? And they did mention the Dwarven Excavation, where they wanted to go to. And she just offhandedly kind of touched the paladin and said, look, whatever you do, don't go to Axelholm. We've heard some bad stuff there, some bad omens. So just whatever you do, if you're going to the Dwarven Excavation, take care of what you need and go back. Just whatever. Don't do it. So that was little seeds, little foreshadowing, different things I started dropping into the campaign. And when they had a discussion with the town master the next morning, he kind of hinted at the same things. Look, just go there, come back, beware of Axelholm. They say there's a banshee there. It's just a terrible place. So bring back my 2 best miners, those 2 dwarves, Hansel and Gretel, whatever they're called. And so they kind of geared up, and they got some horses and went right to the Dwarven Excavation. So this is the next phase. We're still in that first set of maps, those first set of quests. Now change it up. Here's the maps. Here's all the things I've done. Go ahead and show you everything. Of course, I have took this into Dungeon Draft and created my own little take on it, and then brought it in Tabletop Simulator, added some 3D elements. I took off the hidden rooms, just had them find them on their own, of course. Hidden rooms, I tend to do theater of the mind. I wouldn't have to worry about them on the map, or I just have my map, I know where it's at, and we just do it that way. And there's not much there anyway at Dwarven Excavation. But they did arrive there, and they kind of walk up to the place. The dwarves are there. The dwarves just finished fighting off this pack of undead dwarf skeletons. Now, had the characters gone to Dwarven Excavation first, they would have encountered those undead skeletons, and there would have been a fight there. But because they kind of went in a different order and did Umbrage Hill first, well, they missed that encounter. That's just how I ran it. So they got there, and the little halfling scouted up ahead, and I think it screwed up a stealth roll, and right when the dwarves were killing the final undead dwarf, they heard the noise behind them, and someone yelled out, and they threw an axe. I gave her a dex check. She successfully dodged it. But they met up with them, and there was some role play there. They're trying to figure out, why are you here? Just come back to Phandalin. There's a dragon around. Well, this is where I changed the story just a little bit myself. I decided that they are there to actually find their ancestors' bones. I picked one of the dwarves, maybe Norbus, I think is who it was. But he is at this excavation to find his ancestor, who, his great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, who obviously made very poor choices in being part of Abbathor's temple. And he felt like the bones have been desecrated, and he wanted to bring them out of the temple and bury them properly, that, in hopes that his great ancestor could pass on in the afterlife, instead of being in this run-down, destroyed, and, evil temple. But the question is, how do you find your ancestors' bones when there's going to be tons of them in this place, right? There's just going to be a ton of them. Well, he had a small little orb, a white orb that was enchanted, and this artifact would crack. It would fall apart next to his ancestors' bones. It had been infused with his blood, his ancestry's blood, and so it had a way of detecting, what bone was what, just what sarcophagus belonged to his family line. And when it approached it, it looked like powdered sugar. It would just break down this artifact and would go away. And that way he knew, right? I actually stole this idea from a Forgotten Realms novel, a series of novels, 3 of them. I can't remember the name. I'll just put the picture up. And in there, they're trying to find the Tablet of Fate, and they have this artifact, this kind of device that explodes when it gets next to a very, very powerful item. and I didn't want it to explode. I decided to have it small disintegration. Also, they brought with them from Phandalin, this is just my take on the adventure, some drones, some seeker drones, or I guess we could call them seeker drones, that the gnomes had crafted that help expand the frontier. They're just little drones that go out. They had 3 of them, and they were to place them out in the Dwarven Excavation to help kind of map out the area and kind of give them a little early warning device in case something showed up. Now, what was fun here was there was a audio log. I have a video on this about these audio logs I created for the Dwarven Excavation. They were a lot of fun to do. They found 3 out of 4. They missed 1, but no big deal. But they found 1 out there. One of the seeker drones actually discovered it, and one of the other characters went over to investigate, and it was fun. I got to play that, and I believe it added quite a bit to the adventure there to hear some history instead of just me, blah 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 blah, just telling them it. But they went to the door of the Dwarven Excavation. I changed it to a huge stone, heavy door, like a bank door, like a bank vault, very, very, very thick. And they had to do a skill challenge there to open it. But the first time, the paladin stuck the crowbar in and tried to, open this thing up, small sentinels started to appear. They were cloaked in the mountain. I'll put a quick image up here. It comes from the game Battle Chasers, which I'm playing right now, which is a lot of fun. But I stole that art from them. And these are just sentinel drones that are just there to protect the temple, and they've been there for a long, hundreds of years, never activated. But as soon as someone tried to break in, boom, there they were. And so I had the paladin very quickly, skill challenge, trying to get into the door. They all scuffled in, and boom, shut it just as the drones were appearing and trying to, cause a problem. So they began the exploration of the Dwarven Excavation. They found one of the secret rooms there. They found 2 more of the audio logs inside the temple. And then when they got to the main room, that is where the artifact disintegrated, and they found his ancestors' bones. But at that moment, this is something I've added to the adventure, the Dwarven statues inside of these acolytes of Abbathor came to life. I'll put a couple images up here. This is something I designed in Adobe Illustrator, and I think I did the whole thing in Adobe Illustrator, and then brought into Tabletop Simulator, created custom tokens, and that is where we ended the night, right when those things came to life, because it's a temple of greed, and nothing is to leave that temple, including the bones that have been buried there. So that's it, guys. That's where that's as far as we got that night. It was 4 hours of play. As you can see, all we did was kind of finish Umbrage Hill and go right into Dwarven Excavation. So we got quite a bit of game to go here. Also, they did meet the mining consortium lady who just popped in briefly, and it's kind of an adversary of the town master. And and she came in and said, "Look, if you're going to the Dwarven Excavation, I'll pay you, maybe 5 to 10 gold, depending on what type of minerals you find, if you bring them back to me, right?" And that's another way of just kind of, slowly introducing new NPCs, because there are a ton of NPCs, and also to give them extra things to do while they're there, instead of just, maybe just a dungeon crawl or just trying to find, bones somewhere. All right, guys, that's it. That's all I got for you. It was a great time, and we play again on this Friday, but the next Friday, and of course, we'll pick up right where we left off with the attack and them coming out of the Dwarven Excavation. And you know what? Since it's sandbox, who knows what's coming up next? All right, guys, that's it. See you in the next one.